Who won the spring game in your mind?
I
Thoughts?
think it's pretty clear who won the spring game, and he won it by default, and it's Joe Milton. And the reason Joe Milton won the spring game is we saw that even though the potential is there, Nico Iamaleava has some things he's got to work on. He missed on a few throws. His decision making was questionable at times. His pocket presence was incredible. I think that's the one thing that you should be happy about with the future is Nico's pocket presence is really good for a freshman, but he still has some things he has to develop on, and it really showed who is ahead of who in that offense. So I think by default on that, Joe Milton is the winner because let's be honest, Gaston Moore is not going to be starting in the fall. I don't care that he had the best game of the three quarterbacks.
Agreed, agreed. Um, and I think a lot of what I've said over the past few weeks needs to be taken into context. I've said all along that I think that Nico Iamaleava will make a real run at this job, but that could be the end of September. That could be after struggles that Joe Milton might have. So I'm not surprised at all that Nico didn't come out and light it up, throw for 380 yards and 12 of 14 passing. I don't think you have to remember spring games and spring practices are orchestrated. So even if I am right in that I think Nico is further along than a lot of people, including Dennis Stott of CBS Sports, give him credit for, you're not going to go out and show that and create a potential quarterback controversy in your one open practice, Caleb. I think we can agree on that.
Right, exactly. Particularly when he held out all of the key weapons. I mean, the top four receivers that are going to be in the rotation in the fall, Brew McCoy, Ramel Keaton, Squirrel White, and Dante Thornton, none of them played in this game. Jabari Small and Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson didn't play in this game at running back. And everybody was talking about Cam Seldon and Deshaun Bishop making noise at the running back position. Guys, they were making noise because the fact that they played means that they're not going to play a lot in the fall because it was very clear Heupel was holding out his biggest weapons, his biggest skill weapons in this game.
No doubt. And who can blame him last year after what happened to Cedric Tillman? Now I know that was during the season; it wasn't the off season. But who can blame somebody for being a little bit conservative? I wrote a column about how Dylan Sampson was the story of a spring camp, and I still believe that some people didn't quite get the gist of that. I'm not talking about the spring game. Listen, the spring game is you've been to Broadway, Caleb. A spring game is a dress rehearsal that you get to kind of peek behind the curtain for just a little bit. Are they going to show you anything significant now that they're broadcast nationwide? Absolutely not. So I wasn't basing Dylan Sampson off what happened in the spring game. I will still say that I think he is one of the superstars, if not the superstar of spring camp from people I talked to. But there's no reason to go out there and get him roughed up, especially but against a bunch of guys too that are probably going to be third string defensive players and second string defensive players. There's no need to show everything. There's no need to show your hand at this point, Caleb, in the whole process, no matter what position we're talking about.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even go as far, having been in the pit orchestra of all of my high school musicals.
There you
I
go.
would not. I would not even go as far as to say it's even a dress rehearsal. Because I would say it's like when you're still working back in the band room and just going through the the motions and figuring things out. Because it's not even a dress rehearsal. Because in a dress rehearsal, you're in full pads and you're going as if you're going at the full show. They're not treating a spring game like it's a game at all. You're treating it as, particularly if you're Josh Heupel, where you're like, I don't want to show anything to the public.
No, and it's to the point with Josh Heupel that it's almost laughable, and I don't mean this in a bad way. It's almost laughable how protective he is of anything. And I had somebody that was talking about going. I think I mentioned this to you, talking about going to the high school football clinic, and he's like, there was nothing there. Josh Heupel's just not going to show you anything. That's how he's wired. I don't know if Nick Saban's like that. I don't know if other successful coaches are like that. I know that Steve Spurrier, everything was open. He didn't care if you saw everything. He felt like that he was going to one up you on game day. Josh Heupel is a very protective coach, so he's going to hold people out. He's not going to show people much in the spring game, which is why all along I didn't think they should charge $5 for the spring game, Caleb.
Yeah, but I mean, I did agree with you that they shouldn't have charged $5, but if you can get 60,000 when you're charging $5, that's the equivalent of like having 90,000 for the A-Day game, which happened when Nick Saban was first at Alabama, I guess 15 years ago. That was incredible that they were able to pull that off. I give them a lot of credit. I'm kind of with you. It's weird that he likes to be so cagey to me, only because we've talked about it before. He reminds me of Steve Spurrier in the sense that he has a system that's easy to figure out, and it's more, there's nothing you're catching people off guard with in the system. It's just hard to defend. It's just really, really, really hard to defend, and it's not. I don't understand why Heupel feels the need to be so cagey about it. I feel like pro style offenses would need to be more cagey about these situations because they have a more open playbook.
Well, I think that from people I talk to, Josh Heupel and the coaching staff think they're way ahead of the curve. So if they think they're way ahead of the curve, they don't want to show anything, and you want to ride that out for 2-3 years, however long you can ride it out. Rebecca said, I felt like I'm not about to show all my shiny new toys. You're exactly right. It was all about that. It was good to see them throwing the ball around, though. I think I really believe in Josh Heupel's ultimate fantasy of the spring game, that he might not even play starting quarterbacks, that they might just play for one series, or it could have been a lot worse. I heard some people complaining they didn't get to see some of the guys that they wanted to see in particular the receivers, and I heard a lot of that. But at the end of the day, I think if Tennessee wins 10 or 11 games this fall, nobody's really going to matter, right? Nobody's going to care. It's not going to matter.
Yeah, I agree. It's what do you guys expect? It's a spring game. If you paid $5 to show up for that, that's on you.
but I am old enough to remember when it was actually a spring game and they kind of kept score. And I'm old enough to remember the transfer in early 2000s where they kind of went to a scoring system, like an interception, you got 5 points or that sort of thing. So I do remember them trying to make it feel like a spring game. I remember Butch Jones doing the Peyton Manning against was it Alabama, where he ducks to do the quarterback sneak and then he ends up rolling out and they would throw it and he threw it in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown, and they had that drill. Do you remember that by chance?
I remember that they had specific drills during the spring game with Butch Jones. I don't remember exactly what they were. They were like, it was like skills challenges, I remember.
Yes. So I would kind of rather see that, to be real honest with you. I mean, as opposed to a game, I felt like they were trying to force a square peg into a round hole on Saturday because they got a coach that doesn't want to show anything, yet they want to show their fans something.
Yeah, no, that's very true. You're right. It's a tricky situation to be in. But the thing that when you say you don't want to show it, when you say that Josh Heupel's ahead of the curve by 3 years, is he ahead of the curve in the sense that it's not that he has an offense that no one has seen. It's that he has an offense that no one's figured out how to stop.
Right. I think he thinks that. And I think that also, and let me give you a little bit of an insight without giving stuff away for those that are on board. Please hit that thumbs up button, the like button. I think they're going to do some different things if it's Joe Milton, if that's the guy, which I think it will be. I think that's the odds-on choice to start this season, no question. So I think they'll do some different things. I think they'll do, from what I'm told, some more Dylan Sampson stuff out of the backfield. That'll be extended running plays to get them more explosiveness. I think that Joe Milton is better on the over the middle passes, the little passes underneath. I think that he is going to do really well there, but does that take away your deep play ability? Well, you have to manufacture those points somehow. So I think one of the ways that Tennessee's going to be able to do that is going to be Dylan Sampson out of the backfield. Dylan Sampson perhaps playing even a 4 wide receiver role at times. I think that you're going to see Tennessee play more 4 wide than they have previously, which excludes a tight end like Princeton Fan or Jacob Warren. But I think they really like their wide receivers and what they have. The other thing is you could play Jacob Warren the exact same amount of snaps, and the rotation in which he would come out with Princeton Fant Caleb could be a 4 wide receiver set. So instead of rotating them equal series throughout, maybe one series is a 4 wide receiver set. The other series is Jacob Warren, who I think warrants playing time. I think there's all kinds of interesting things. I think you're going to see this offense go in a bit of a different direction a little bit. I mean, you'd have to be an aficionado to see that, but I think you're going to see it tweaked a little bit in what is essentially full year number 2.
So what you're saying is that Josh Heupel's system is not a simplistic system. It actually is adaptable, and the playbook is pretty open, I guess would be the word.
I think it is adaptable. I mean, I think that they can do some of that. I think it's adaptable. I don't think they're going to up and run pro style Bill Walsh San Francisco 49ers in the 1980s. I don't think they're going to run I formation Jimmy Johnson in the early 90s, but yeah, I think they can do some different things. Mr. Jones saying Heupel didn't want to put too much on tape at the spring game for teams like Clemson, our rivals, to have any game tape to study. I agree with that. I think it's more about opposition than it is about giving away anything new that Josh Heupel might have in his playbook. But I think it is very much about also showing that Joe Milton and Nico are competent quarterbacks, but not showing too much of what they could do. And like I said, I think Milton has a different skill set, Caleb, than Hendon Hooker. And I think they'll do things a little bit different with Joe Milton. But why would you show that to everybody in April?
No, you're right. That's a good point. That's a very fair point. And we need to be clear on this. This is what makes Josh Heupel as a head coach who has a, I guess, cutting edge offensive system different from so many other coaches who stick to the same system. Rest in peace, Mike Leach, great, founder of the air raid offense. But you and I both know Mike Leach had the same exact offense and stuck with it for 25 years. There was really nothing different about it at all.
That's the big difference is between a Mike Leach and a Josh Heupel. And again, rest his soul. I don't mean this bad. Same thing with Hal Mumme, who Leach coached under at Kentucky. Mumme was not going to come out and do something vastly different than what he did with Tim Couch. It was going to be the same thing. And ultimately, you see that his coaching trajectory kind of went up and then kind of went flat. And the reason is because he wasn't willing to do anything different.